November 2nd, 1944. Just past noon. The gray skies over the Czech-Hungarian border stretch endlessly, a thin veil of high clouds diffusing the weak autumn sun. Below, the rolling hills and patchy forests of occupied Czechoslovakia blur into a patchwork of browns and faded greens, scarred by the tracks of tanks and the craters of recent bombings. You hear the steady thrum of the Packard Merlin engine, a deep, reassuring growl that vibrates through the cockpit of the P-51 Mustang, Angel's playmate. Lieutenant Bruce Carr, 23 years old, from the 354th Fighter Group, 363rd Fighter Squadron, based out of Rosières-en-Haye in France, grips the stick lightly, his gloved hands steady despite the chill seeping through the canopy. The formation is tight, 8 Mustangs weaving through the flak-studded air on a fighter sweep, hunting for targets of opportunity deep behind enemy lines. Carr's squadron had launched earlier that morning, refueling at a forward strip before pushing east. The radio crackles with clipped voices. Red 2, tighten up. Eyes on that rail yard at 2 o'clock. Captain Ellis, the flight lead, sounds calm, but there's an edge to it, the kind that comes from knowing the Luftwaffe's Jagdgeschwader units are still out there, desperate and dangerous as the Allies press toward the Reich. Carr scans the horizon, his oxygen mask fogging slightly with each breath. The altimeter reads 5,000 feet, low enough to spot ground movement but high enough to dodge small arms fire. Or so they hope. The mission brief had been straightforward. Strafe enemy supply lines, disrupt troop movements, soften up the Wehrmacht's defenses as the ground forces grind forward. But out here, over hostile territory, every shadow could hide a flak battery. The air smells metallic through the mask, aviation fuel and cordite residue from earlier passes. Carr's Mustang is loaded light today. 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns in the wings, ammo belts half spent from an earlier tangle with a pair of Focke-Wulf 190s that scattered like startled birds. His flight suit is damp with sweat, the sheepskin collar chafing his neck. You feel the tension in the cockpit, the way the plane bucks slightly in the turbulent air rising from the heated earth below. Suddenly, the radio bursts to life. Bogies at 9 low. FW 190s climbing fast. But no, it's not fighters. It's worse. Black puffs erupt around the formation like angry flowers blooming in the sky. Flak, heavy 88mm anti-aircraft guns from a concealed battery near a small village, their muzzles flashing dully in the distance. The shells whistle up, invisible until they detonate, sending shrapnel rattling against the fuselage like hail on a tin roof. Carr banks hard left, throttling up to evade, but the bursts are thick now, a wall of exploding steel. Brake right! Brake right! Someone shouts over the net. The Mustang shudders as fragments pepper the wing, a sharp ping echoing through the airframe. Carr's heart pounds, adrenaline surging as he jinks the plane, pulling GS that press him into the seat. Smoke trails from the engine cowling hit, oil pressure dropping fast. The propeller whines erratically, the Merlin coughing black smoke. Angel's playmate taking fire. Engines hit. He transmits, voice steady but urgent. No response, the radio's dead. Antenna likely shredded. Alone now, separated from the flight in the chaos. The ground rushes up as the plane loses power, the altimeter unwinding like a broken clock. He scans for a flat spot, a field, a road, anything. Below, German troops scurry like ants, vehicles halted along a dirt track. No parachuting. Too low, and the canopy would snag on the trees. The Mustang slews sideways, controls mushy. Carr fights it, feathering the prop, gliding toward a narrow meadow bordered by woods. Branches whip past as he flares, the wheels touching down hard, bouncing over ruts and stones. The plane skids, nose digging in, propeller bending with a sickening crunch. Dirt sprays up, engulfing the cockpit in a brown cloud. Silence falls, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal and the distant rumble of artillery. Carr unstraps, kicks open the canopy, and tumbles out, grabbing his .45 pistol and survival kit. Blood trickles from a gash on his forehead. Shrapnel? Debris? No time to check. German voices echo from the tree lean, harsh and urgent. Americaner! Here Drubin. He sprints for cover, legs pumping through knee-high grass, the weight of his flight gear dragging him down. Bullets zip past, cracking into the earth. Into the woods, heart racing, breath ragged. The sudden tension of the crash morphs into raw survival. Hunted, isolated, deep in enemy territory with winter's bite in the air. The safe option whispers. Surrender, wave a white flag, spend the war in a stalag. But Carr's mind races ahead, rejecting it. Not yet, not like this. The forest swallows him, branches snagging his jacket as he pushes deeper. Twilight approaches early this far east, the sun dipping behind the hills. He hears dogs barking in the distance, patrols fanning out. No map, no compass beyond the one in his kit. Supplies. A chocolate bar, water tablets, silk escape map tucked in his boot. The cold seeps in, frost already rhyming the leaves. He hunkers down behind a fallen log, listening to the search parties crash through the underbrush. Minutes stretch into hours, the initial adrenaline crash leaving him shivering, alert to every snap of a twig. As darkness falls, the sounds fade, the Germans assuming he's fled farther or perhaps circled back. Carr risks a peek. Smoke rises from his wrecked Mustang, a beacon for anyone nearby. But beyond, lights flicker from what looks like an airfield, runways, hangars, the silhouettes of planes. Luftwaffe, no doubt. The safe option again. Approach, hands up, pilot to pilot. They treat flyers better than the infantry would. But something stirs in him. A defiance, born of the endless missions. The friends lost to flak and fighters. Surrender? After all this? No. He creeps closer, using the shadows, the plan forming hazy in his mind. The airfield hums with activity even at dusk. Mechanics shouting in German, engines revving for night tests. Carr finds a vantage in the tree lean, belly down in the damp earth, watching. A Focke-Wulf 190 sits apart, its radial engine cowling open, tools scattered nearby. Fuel trucks come and go. His stomach growls. Last meal was breakfast. A hasty mess hall chow back at base. The waiting begins, interminable, as stars prick the sky and the temperature plummets. Frost forms on his breath. He thinks of home, of the squadron, wondering if he's dead. But resolve hardens. If he can just wait them out, the night drags on, endless and biting. November 2nd bleeds into the early hours of November 3rd, 1944. Frost coats the ground, turning the forest floor into a brittle carpet that crunches under Carr's boots whenever he shifts position. He lies prone in the damp underbrush at the edge of the tree lean, eyes fixed on the Luftwaffe airfield below. The field is dispersed, typical for these forward bases. Planes parked in revetments among the trees, camouflaged nets draped over fuselages. A single perforated steel plank runway glinting faintly under the moonlight. Floodlights sweep occasionally, but mostly it's dark, the Germans conserving power as fuel shortages bite deeper into their operations. Carr's body aches from the crash landing hours earlier. The gash on his forehead has crusted over, but his flight suit is torn at the knees, mud caked into the fabric. Hunger gnaws at him, the chocolate bar from his survival kit long gone. Rationed bites that did little to stave off the emptiness. His mouth is dry. He chews on a leaf to generate saliva, anything to quiet the thirst. You feel the cold creeping into his bones, the way his fingers stiffen around the grip of his Colt .45, the only weapon he has left. Exhaustion pulls at him, but sleep is impossible. Every distant engine rev or shout from the field snaps him alert. Down on the airfield, activity ebbs and flows. Mechanics in grease-stained overalls push fuel bozers between the dispersed Focke-Wulfs, their radial engines silent now but ready. Carr counts at least a dozen FW-190s, some with propellers still warm from test runs. Sentries patrol the perimeter, rifles slung, cigarettes glowing like fireflies in the dark. Dogs bark sporadically from a kennel near the operations hut. Luftwaffe shepherds trained to hunt down airmen like him. The pressure builds with every passing minute. Patrols comb the woods closer now, flashlights probing the shadows. He hears them, boots thudding on frozen earth, voices low and urgent. Suchen Sie den Amerikaner. Air can nicked white sane. Car presses flatter against the ground as a search party passes within 50 yards, their beams slicing through the trees. His breath comes shallow, controlled, the chill air burning his lungs. The situation worsens by the hour. Dawn can't be far off, maybe 3-4 hours, and with it, full light. Then the field will swarm. Pilots briefing, ground crews prepping for sorties, trucks rumbling in with ammo. His chances of slipping in undetected plummet. And out here, in the open woods, the patrols will tighten the net. Surrender still tugs at the edges of his mind. A warm cell, food, maybe even decent treatment from fellow flyers. Luftwaffe pilots often shared cigarettes with captured Allied airmen. Stories swapped over coffee. Better than starving or a bullet from some trigger-happy Volkssturm conscript. But the thought sours in his gut. He's flown too many missions, seen too many friends by it over these skies, to wave a handkerchief now. The squadron back at Orcant, or wherever the 354th has moved forward to, would be writing him off already. Missing in action. Another name on the board. No. He watches as 2 ground crewmen wheel a hose toward a lone FW-190 parked off to the side, away from the main cluster. It's an A8 model, he thinks. Stubby nose, BMW 801 radial, 420mm cannons in the wings, 2 MG-131s above the engine. They've been topping off its tanks, running the engine briefly to check for leaks, then shutting it down. The mechanics chat idly, one lighting a smoke before they trudge back toward the hangars. The plane sits there, fueled, armed perhaps, propeller still. Unguarded now, in the shadows between patrols. Car's pulse quickens. The idea solidifies, not surrender, but theft. Steal the damn thing and fly west, low and fast, until he hits Allied lines. Insane. No manual covers this. The cockpit's in German. Schubabel for throttle, Hohenruder for elevator, everything alien. But fighters are fighters. Stick, rudder, throttle. He's tangled with enough 190s in the air to know their quirks. Tight turners, tough birds, that commandagerate automating the engine so you don't have to fiddle with props and mixtures constantly. Enemy pressure mounts as another patrol circles closer, dogs straining on leashes. Car backs deeper into the brush, circling wide to avoid them. Time slips away. The moon dips lower, stars sharpening in the clearing sky. Cold numbs his toes inside his boots, hesitation warring with resolve. Wait too long, and the crew returns at dawn. Move too soon, and a sentry spots him. He times the guards. One passes every 15 minutes or so along the fence line. The dogs quiet for now, settled. Hours crawl. He edges forward again as the field falls quieter. Most personnel bunked down. The targeted FW-190 gleams faintly. Canopy closed but not locked. He hopes. His mind races through the unknowns. Starting procedure, ignition switches, brake release. Trial and error in the dark. One mistake and alarms scream. Bullets follow. But the alternative, capture, interrogation, a long war in a camp, feels worse. Exhaustion blurs his vision, but adrenaline sharpens it when a truck engine coughs to life nearby. Headlights sweeping the runway. The pressure builds to a breaking point. Dawn's first gray hint touches the eastern horizon. Mechanics will stir soon. Carr grips his pistol tighter, breath fogging in the frigid air. He has to move now or lose the window forever. The forest holds its breath with him. Silence thick as the patrols fan out once more, closer than before. Dawn creeps in slowly on November 3rd, 1944. A pale, watery light filters through the bare branches, turning the frost silver on the forest floor. Bruce Carr remains motionless at the edge of the treeline, every muscle locked against the cold that has settled deep into his joints. His eyes never leave the lone FW-190 parked in the shadows of a small revetment. The aircraft sits low on its narrow undercarriage, propeller blades still, cockpit canopy reflecting the first weak rays of sun. No ground crew near it yet. The rest of the field is stirring, engines coughing to life farther down the runway, voices carrying on the crisp air, the metallic clatter of toolboxes being opened. Carr weighs the moment like a commander at a map table. There is no squadron to consult, no radio call to group headquarters, no flight leader to defer to. The decision is his alone, and it must be made now. Stay hidden and wait for night again. Risking tighter patrols, hunger weakening him further, dogs picking up his scent, or move while the field is half asleep, before full activity locks the base down. He runs the options through his mind the way he would a combat engagement. Approach vectors, cover, timing, escape routes. The pistol in his hand feels heavier than its 8 rounds warrant. 8 shots if discovered. Not enough. He watches the sentry pattern one last time. The nearest guard, a young Luftwaffe auxiliary in a greatcoat 2 sizes too large, trudges along the fence line, rifle slung lazily, breath pluming white. He pauses every few minutes to stamp his feet against the cold, eyes scanning the woods without real expectation. The next patrol is farther off, near the fuel dump. Dogs still quiet. Car notes the gaps. 12 minutes between passes on this side of the field. Enough. The tactical shift crystallizes. No more waiting. No evasion deeper into Czechoslovakia. The only viable route home is through the air, in an enemy fighter, flown by an American who has never sat in a German cockpit. He exhales slowly, steadies his breathing the way he does before a strafing run, and makes the command decision. Go now on foot, low and fast across the open grass to the revetment. Car pockets the .45, checks that his escape kit is secure, and begins to crawl. The frost crunches faintly under his elbows and knees, but the rising noise from the field, starters whining, a Ju-88 transport revving its Jumo engines, covers it. 50 yards of open ground separate the Trilene from the aircraft. He moves in short rushes. Crawl 10 yards, freeze, listen, crawl again. His heart hammers against the frozen earth. You feel the exposure, the nakedness of being caught in daylight with nowhere to hide. Halfway across, a truck engine growls to life near the hangars. Headlights sweep the field, but the beam passes behind him. He presses flat, face in the cold grass, tasting dirt and frost. The truck rumbles away toward the runway threshold. Car rises to a crouch and sprints the last 20 yards, boots silent on the softer ground inside the revetment. He reaches the FW-190 undetected, presses his back against the cool metal of the fuselage, and allows himself one shallow breath. Up close, the fighter smells of oil, glycol, and cordite. Swastikas on the tail, yellow theater band around the rear fuselage, Eastern Front markings. The canopy is closed but not latched. A careless mechanic left it that way after the night checks. Car reaches up, fingers numb, and gently slides it back. The hinges whisper. Inside, the cockpit is cramped, instruments labeled in German. Druckhof for altimeter, Geschwindigkeit for airspeed, Kraftstoff for fuel. The stick is centered, rudder pedals wide for German boots. A faint aroma of leather and tobacco lingers. Someone's personal aircraft. He hauls himself onto the wing root, careful not to kick the pitted aluminum skin, and lowers himself into the seat. The parachute someone left packed on the floor pan will have to serve as his own. No time to adjust straps properly. Harness buckled loosely. Canopy still open, he dare not close it yet. Now the critical unknowns. Starting the BMW 801 radial. He has watched 190 start from a distance during dogfights, seen the procedure in gun camera footage. Magnetos left and right, fuel primer, throttle cracked open, starter switch. His gloved fingers trace the panel in the dim morning light. The Kommandantrat box dominates the left side, automated engine control, a German luxury the Mustang lacks. He finds the starter button, the primer pump, the throttle quadrant. Fuel cocks, there, 2 levers. He sets them to open. Battery switch on. A faint whine as gyros spin up. The field is waking faster now. 2 mechanics walking toward a nearby 190, laughing about something. Another engine bursts into life with a belch of blue smoke. Car's mouth is bone dry. No turning back. He primes the engine 3 strokes for, then thumbs the starter. Nothing at first. The propeller jerks once, twice. He pumps again, holds the button. The radial coughs, backfires sharply, then catches with a roar that seems to shake the entire airfield. Exhaust stacks belch flame and smoke. Heads turn. A shout rises from the hangar line. Was ist das? The engine settles into a rough idle, oil pressure climbing slowly. Car slams the canopy forward. It latches with a metallic thunk. Throttle up slightly to keep it running. Brakes on. He scans the gauges. Fuel full, temps rising, everything in the green. The shouting grows louder. Figures running now, ground crew waving arms, a sentry raising his rifle. Car releases the brakes, pushes the throttle forward. The FW-190 surges ahead, tail lifting quickly on its narrow gear. He steers with rudder, bumping over the frozen grass toward the runway. No time for a proper lineup. Tracers arc past the cockpit, someone firing wildly. Bullets ping off the armored windshield. The engine howls as he rams the throttle to full power, the commandajurat automatically adjusting boost and prop pitch. The fighter accelerates faster than he expects, radial barking through open exhausts. He hauls back on the stick. The 190 leaps into the air, undercarriage still down, climbing steeply over the treetops. Below, the airfield erupts in chaos. Men running, a half-dressed pilot sprinting toward another plane, rifles cracking uselessly. Car banks west, low over the trees, heart pounding with the engine. The tactical shift is complete, from hunted evader to airborne thief. Behind him, the Luftwaffe scrambles to respond. Ahead, hundreds of miles of enemy territory, then the front lines, where both sides will see a Focke-Wulf and open fire. The FW-190 climbs hard into the pale morning sky of November 3, 1944, its BMW radial thundering at full boost. Bruce Carr keeps the nose low after the initial zoom, skimming the treetops at barely 200 feet, the blurred green and brown of the Czechoslovak countryside whipping past beneath the wings. The airframe vibrates with unfamiliar harmonics, different from the smooth whine of the Merlin in his Mustang. The cockpit is tighter, the seat higher, the armored glass thicker. Exhaust smoke trails faintly from the stacks, and the smell of rich fuel mixture fills the confined space. He banks gently northwest, compass rose spinning as he orients toward the distant front lines, roughly 300 miles away across enemy territory. Speed builds quickly, 350, then 380 miles per hour indicated. The commandajurat hums efficiently, handling manifold pressure and propeller pitch without his input. For a moment, exhilaration overrides everything. He is airborne, free, heading west in a stolen Luftwaffe fighter. The airfield shrinks behind him, ant-like figures still running in confusion. Then the first unexpected resistance arrives, not from the ground, but from the aircraft itself. A sharp warning horn blares in the cockpit. Red lights flash on the instrument panel. Car's eyes dart across the gauges. Uldruck oil pressure dropping fast. Temperature climbing into the red. The engine coughs once. A deep, unhealthy rumble that vibrates through the airframe. He throttles back instinctively, but the commandajurat fights him, trying to maintain boost. Black smoke puffs from the cowling. The mechanics must have overprimed during their night checks, or left a fuel cock partially misset. Whatever the cause, the radial is overheating, threatening to seize. Carr curses under his breath, scans for a field to set down. No, not again. He eases the throttle further, trims for best glide speed, watches the temps creep downward agonizingly slowly. The horn silences, but the lights stay on. He has minutes, not hours, before something gives. The mistake was rushing the start. Too much primer, no proper warm-up. Classic ground crew oversight, now his problem at full power. He levels at 500 feet, nursing the engine, trading altitude for distance. The landscape below is hostile. Scattered villages, rail lines crawling with flat cars, Wehrmacht convoys kicking up dust on dirt roads. Every column has at least one quad 20mm Flakvierling mounted on a half-track, crews already tracking the lone 190 streaking west at low level. Tracers begin to rise. Lazy orange strings at first, then snapping past the canopy with vicious cracks. Unexpected resistance from the ground now joins the mechanical trouble. A battery of 37mm guns near a crossroads opens up, shells bursting in black puffs ahead and below. Carr jinks hard left, Then right, the 190 responding eagerly despite the ailing engine. Shrapnel pings off the armored belly plate. He dives lower, hedge-hopping, using terrain folds for cover. The oil pressure steadies, barely, but the temperature needle hovers at the edge of danger. Another mistake compounds the first. In the rush to escape, he never retracted the landing gear. The wheels hang down like dragging anchors, robbing him of precious speed and adding drag that heats the engine further. He reaches for the lever, marked firework, and yanks it upward. Hydraulic whine, but nothing happens. Jammed, or frozen, or the system needs higher pressure. He pumps the emergency hand crank beside the seat, muscles straining, sweat beading under his helmet. Slowly, agonizingly, the mains tuck upward, the tail will following. Speed jumps 20 mph almost immediately. A small relief, but the Luftwaffe is waking fully now. Behind him, at extreme range, 2 specks climb from the stolen airfield. More FW-190s scrambling to pursue. Carr spots them in the mirror, still distant but closing on his labored bird. Radio chatter would be frantic down there, calls going out to every jagdgrupp between here and the front. He has no radio to monitor, no way to know what vectors they're receiving. The engine coughs again, worse this time. Power fluctuates. He richens the mixture manually, there's an emergency override lever, and the radial smooths momentarily. Fuel consumption will be brutal, but he needs every horsepower. The front lines are still hours away at this cautious throttle setting. He pushes forward again, accepting the risk. More resistance erupts ahead. A train on a north-south rail line, troop transport, flak cars loaded with infantry and light flak, opens fire as he overflies at mast height. Tracers stitch the sky around him, one round smacking the wing root with a hammer blow. The 190 shudders but flies on. He resists the urge to strafe. Ammunition is unknown, and every second spent shooting is time lost westward. The mistakes and resistance layer upon one another. Hurried takeoff, mechanical neglect inherited from the ground crew, gear left down, no reconnaissance of the aircraft's exact condition. Yet the fighter keeps flying, stubborn as its new pilot. Carr wipes sweat from his eyes, grips the stick tighter, and presses on. The sun climbs higher, burning off the morning haze, illuminating every gun position below. The engine temperature needle dances but holds just below seizure. The pursuing dots grow no closer, for now. He skirts a larger town, smoke rising from factory chimneys, more flak bursting in disciplined patterns. One shell detonates close beneath the fuselage, the concussion rocking the plane, peppering the underside with fragments. Alarms blare again, fuel pressure warning this time. A line nicked or tank hold. He switches tanks, prays the mains are intact. Minute by minute, mile by mile, the unexpected trials mount. Yet the stolen Focke-Wulf carries him onward, deeper into the gauntlet between capture behind and uncertain safety ahead. Mid-morning, November 3rd, 1944. The sun hangs low and pale in the southern sky, casting long shadows over the rolling farmland and dense woods of western Czechoslovakia. Bruce Carr grips the stick of the stolen FW-190 with white-knuckled hands, the vibration of the strained BMW 801 radial thrumming up through the airframe into his arms and chest. The cockpit is a furnace, heat from the overheating engine radiating through the firewall, mixing with the sweat soaking his flight suit. The smell of hot oil and glycol is thick, almost choking. Every few minutes the engine coughs, a deep, rattling hack that sends a spike of fear through his gut. He flies at treetop height, sometimes lower, the propeller blast flattening grass and kicking up leaves in his wake. Speed is down to 320 miles per hour now. He dares not push the throttle further. The pursuing 190s have fallen behind, either low on fuel or recalled, but the sky ahead is not empty. High above, contrails crisscross like white scars, distant Luftwaffe patrols and Allied bomber streams, too far to interfere yet. Down here, though, he is alone in a gauntlet of light flak and small arms fire that erupts wherever he passes. The psychological strain begins to bite deeper than the cold of the previous night. Hours in the cockpit with no food, almost no water, the adrenaline of escape giving way to a grinding fatigue. His eyes burn from staring at the gauges, oil temperature still flirting with the red line, fuel quantity needles dropping faster than they should. Every burst of tracers from below forces a hard turn, pulling GS that leave him lightheaded. You feel the isolation. No friendly voices on the radio, no wingman to call out threats, just the endless roar of the engine and the crack of passing rounds. A village flashes beneath the wings. Church steeple, clustered red roofs, a schoolyard empty of children. Machine guns on the outskirts open up, tracers arcing lazily then snapping past with vicious speed. One round punches through the port wing, exiting cleanly but leaving a jagged hole. Car banks hard away, stomach turning at the thought of a lucky burst catching the cockpit. The mind plays tricks now. Every dark patch in a field looks like a hidden 88mm battery waiting to elevate. Every glint of sunlight on a windshield a fighter bouncing him from above. He talks to himself aloud, voice hoarse inside the oxygen mask he no longer needs at low level. Keep it together, Bruce. Just a little farther. Home feels impossibly distant, France, England, the States. He pictures the squadron mess hall, hot coffee, the roar of laughter when he tells this story. If he lives to tell it, doubt creeps in like the cold had the night before. Maybe he should have surrendered. A warm cell, Red Cross parcels, survival until the war ends. Instead, he chose this, a slow death by engine seizure or a quick one from flak. Another battery opens up ahead. A Wehrmacht column parked along a road, for 20mm guns swinging toward him. The shells burst in rapid orange flashes, close enough that fragments clatter against the armored belly. Car dives into a shallow valley, following the contour of the land, pulling up sharply over a ridge. The maneuver buys seconds, but the engine protests with a sharp backfire, power dropping momentarily before the commandajurat recovers. His heart skips. Fuel starvation? Whole tank finally running dry? He switches to the auxiliary again, pressure steadies. The strain manifests physically now. Hands trembling on the stick during straight flight, vision tunneling slightly from dehydration and low blood sugar. He sucks on his tongue, trying to generate saliva. Memories intrude unbidden. His wrecked Mustang burning in the meadow, the sound of dogs in the woods, the faces of pilots who didn't make it back from previous missions. Fear sharpens into something colder, resignation edged with defiance. He will not ditch again. Not here. If the engine quits, he'll ride it straight into the ground before bailing out over German troops. More fire from below, a convoy of half-tracks near a rail siding, quad 20s tracking him perfectly. Tracers converge, one stream passing so close he feels the heat through the canopy. A round smacks the propeller boss with a ringing blow. The engine note changes, vibration worsening. Car rolls inverted, dives behind a tree lean, then pulls up hard in the opposite direction. The GS gray him out briefly, vision narrowing to a tunnel before clearing. He levels out breathing hard, sweat stinging his eyes. Time stretches. Minutes feel like hours. The landscape changes slowly. Fewer villages now, more forest, the terrain rising toward the Bohemian hills. The front lines are still far, but closer than they were at dawn. He catches glimpses of bomb craters, abandoned equipment, signs that the fighting has passed this way recently. Hope flickers, then dies again as another burst of flak rises from a concealed position. The psychological weight peaks in a moment of near panic when the engine coughs twice in rapid succession, power falling off sharply. Car's hand flashes to the throttle, easing back, feathering then advancing again. The radial catches, surges, but rougher than before. He realizes he is muttering a half-remembered prayer under his breath, the words automatic. Survival under fire has become a test of will as much as skill. Holding course, ignoring the urge to climb for safer altitude where German fighters wait, staying low where the ground guns can reach him. The sun climbs toward noon, heat building in the cockpit. Exhaustion drags at him, but he forces his eyes open wider, scanning the horizon for the telltale haze of the front. Artillery smoke, vehicle dust, the chaos that marks where Allies and Germans meet. He is still deep in enemy territory, still hunted from below, still betrayed by the faltering engine. But he flies on, minute after minute, the strain carving deeper lines into his young face. Early afternoon, November 3rd, 1944. The stolen FW-190 drones westward over the rugged hills of the Bohemian Moravian Highlands, the engine note rough but steady for the moment. Bruce Carr's world has narrowed to the cockpit. The flickering gauges, the blurred terrain below, the constant scan for threats. Fuel needles hover just above a quarter in the main tanks. Oil temperature has settled into an uneasy equilibrium below the red line. He has been airborne for nearly 5 hours, covering almost 300 miles on a course that skirts major cities and known flak concentrations. Exhaustion drags at him like lead weights, but the haze on the western horizon, thick, gray-brown smoke lit by distant flashes, tells him the front is finally near. The critical turning point arrives without warning. A low ridge rises ahead, forcing Carr to pull up slightly to clear it. As he crests the top at barely 400 feet, the entire forward view opens into the chaos of the active front line. Trenches snake across the landscape like scars. Burned-out tanks and vehicles litter the fields. Artillery shells burst in rhythmic patterns, throwing up columns of earth and black smoke. Long lines of American infantry advance cautiously across open ground, supported by Sherman's grinding forward, their 75mm guns flashing. German positions, dug-in 88s, machine gun nests, scattered Panzerfaust teams, reply with desperate fire. The air above is alive with P-47 Thunderbolts diving on targets, their 8.50 calibers winking as they strafe. For a split second, relief floods through Carr. Home. Allies. Safety. Then reality slams back. He is flying a Focke-Wulf 190 bearing full Luftwaffe markings. Swastikas, yellow bands, everything screaming enemy. To every American gunner below, he is a prime target. The first tracers come from his own side. A quad .50 mounted on an M16 half-track near the advancing infantry swings toward him and opens fire. Orange streams arc up, passing close enough to rattle the canopy. Carr's stomach drops. He yanks the stick hard left, diving toward a fold in the terrain, but more guns join in, Browning machine guns from infantry positions, 40mm Bofors from a battery supporting the advance. Shells burst around him in dirty black puffs. One explodes just off the starboard wing, rocking the 190 violently and peppering the fuselage with shrapnel. He has seconds to decide: climb and risk being bounced by patrolling P-51s or Thunderbolts, or stay low and try to signal somehow that he is friendly. There is no radio to call out on guard channel, no flare pistol, no way to drop gear and rock wings without looking like a standard attack pass. The engine, strained beyond limits, begins to cough again. Rougher now, losing power in surges. Smoke trails once more from the cowling. Carr banks sharply north along the line of advance, trying to parallel the American troops instead of overflying them directly. He throttles back to reduce the smoke trail, drops to 100 feet, skimming a plowed field. But the gunners track him relentlessly. Another burst of .50 caliber fire stitches across the port wing, punching neat holes through the skin. The 190 shudders. Hydraulic pressure flickers, control surfaces growing heavier. Behind him, German fire begins too. A hidden 88mm battery in a treeline, still holding out, elevates and fires at the low-flying Trader 190 fleeing west. Shells whistle overhead, detonating in the air where he would have been seconds earlier. Both sides, in perfect unison, try to kill him. The turning point crystallizes into a single, impossible choice. Land now on whatever patch of ground he can find behind Allied lines, or keep flying and almost certainly be shot down by friendly fire before the engine quits entirely. He spots it ahead, a narrow meadow just behind the foremost American infantry, recently captured, dotted with shell craters but flat enough. GIs are digging in along its eastern edge, Sherman's hull down nearby. Tracers still chase him as he lines up. Carr lowers the gear lever down, praying the damaged hydraulics respond. The mains extend with a groan, locking late. Flaps down. Throttle to idle. The engine backfires violently, losing power at the worst moment. He flares hard over the treeline, the 190 wallowing with low speed and battle damage. Bullets snap past. A final burst from the quad .50 chews into the tail, severing half the starboard elevator. The fighter drops the last 50 feet faster than intended. Wheels hit soft earth, bounce once, then dig in. The FW-190 slews sideways, tail rising, propeller clawing dirt before the blades bend and snap. The aircraft slides to a halt in a cloud of dust and flying clods, nose buried in a shell crater, one wing sheared against a fallen tree. Silence falls, broken only by the distant thunder of artillery and the tick of cooling metal. Carr kicks the canopy open, hands shaking as he unbuckles. He grabs his .45, climbs out onto the crumpled wing, and raises both arms high. American infantry, dirty, helmeted faces under the rims of M1 pots, rise from foxholes 50 yards away, rifles and Thompsons leveled. A sergeant shouts, "Don't move, Kraut!" Carr yells back, voice cracking with exhaustion and relief. "American! I'm American." Lieutenant Bruce Carr, 354th Fighter Group. The soldiers hesitate, weapons still trained. One young private edges forward, bayonet fixed. The sergeant waves him back, approaches cautiously himself. He stares at the swastika-marked tail, then at Carr's mud-caked use-off flight suit, the wings on his chest, the unmistakable Midwestern accent. The critical moment hangs in the balance. Friend or foe, life or a quick execution as a spy in captured gear. Then the sergeant lowers his Garand slightly. "Well, I'll be damned," he mutters. "You just flew that thing in here?" Carr nods, legs barely holding him up. The rifles come down. Men emerge from cover, staring in disbelief at the smoking German fighter and the American pilot standing atop it. The turning point is complete. From hunted thief in the air to grounded survivor behind Allied lines, alive against every odd. Late afternoon, November 3rd, 1944. The meadow behind the advancing American lines lies quiet now, the wrecked FW-190 canted nose down in its crater. One wing crumpled like paper, propeller blades curled from the impact. Thin smoke curls from the cowling, the smell of burnt oil and glycol hanging heavy in the cold air. Bruce Carr stands unsteadily on the torn wing root, arms still half raised, while the infantry sergeant and a dozen GIs form a loose semicircle around the aircraft, weapons lowered but eyes wary. The sergeant, a weathered man from the 90th Infantry Division, mud streaking his face, a cigarette dangling unlit from his lips, steps closer. He circles the fighter slowly, boots squelching in the churned earth, taking in the black crosses, the yellow theater band, the fresh bullet holes stitched across the fuselage. Then he looks back at Carr, the American flight suit under the grime, the lieutenant's bars faint on the collar, the exhaustion etched into the young face. "You really fly this thing all the way from Czechoslovakia?" the sergeant asks, voice low with disbelief. Carr nods, throat raw. "Shot down yesterday. Stole it this morning. Engine was about to quit when your boys started shooting at me." A few of the soldiers chuckle nervously, the tension easing. One private, barely shaving age, mutters, "Hell of a way to come home, sir." The climax of the ordeal now unfolds not in the air, but on the ground, over the next hours, slow, deliberate, and fraught with lingering danger. First comes the verification. A runner is sent back to Battalion HQ with news of the bizarre arrival. Carr is escorted, politely but firmly, away from the aircraft to a shell scrape 50 yards rearward. He sits on an ammo crate, hands wrapped around a canteen someone thrusts at him. The water tastes metallic, wonderful. A medic checks the gash on his forehead, cleans it with sulfa powder, slaps on a bandage. Someone else produces a K-ration, cheese and crackers, and Carr eats slowly, the food settling uneasily in his empty stomach. Word spreads quickly along the line. Officers arrive, a captain from Division G2 Intelligence, then a major. They question him carefully under a camouflaged tent fly as dusk gathers. Name, rank, serial number, unit, base, group commander's name. Details only an American pilot would know. The 354th's nickname, Pioneer Mustang Group. Recent moves from Orcant to new fields in France. The squadron CO's habits. Carr answers steadily, voice gaining strength with each minute on the ground. The major nods finally, satisfied. "Welcome back, Lieutenant. You've had one hell of a day." But the build-up continues. The front here is fluid, German counterattacks probe nightly, artillery duels rumble constantly. As night falls, the meadow becomes a staging area. Trucks growl in with ammo and hot chow. Wounded are loaded onto jeeps headed rearward. Carr is offered a ride to division rear, but he refuses. He wants to stay near the wreck until someone from 9 Fighter Command can see it, confirm the story. Intelligence wants photographs, measurements, any documents left in the cockpit. He beds down in a foxhole with a platoon from Company C, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, helmet for a pillow. The ground shakes periodically from outgoing 155mm barrages. Flares drift overhead, casting eerie white light. German mortars answer sporadically, rounds whistling in to burst in the treeline. No one sleeps deeply. Carr dozes in snatches, waking each time the earth trembles, half expecting to hear dogs or shouts in German again. Dawn, November 4th. Gray light, frost on the grass. An Air Corps liaison officer arrives, a captain from the 9th Air Force Support Command, driven forward in a jeep with a photographer. They spend hours with the FW-190, climbing over it, noting damage patterns, recovering the logbook and armament records from the cockpit pouch. The photographer shoots roll after roll, Carr posing beside the swastika-marked tail, forcing a tired grin. The intelligence officers interview him again, this time with maps spread on a hood, tracing his route, marking flak positions and observe troop movements. By midday the story has raced up the chain. A call goes to 9 Fighter Command headquarters, then to the 354th Fighter Group, now operating from a strip near Nancy. Carr's squadron mates here first in fragments. Carr's alive. Flew a 190 in. Landed behind the 90. Disbelief, then celebration. Someone breaks out a bottle of captured schnapps. But the ground war intrudes again. Mid-afternoon, German artillery zeroes the meadow, counter-battery fire in response to American advances. Shells scream in, bursting among the parked vehicles and the wrecked fighter. Carr dives into a slit trench with the GIs, earth raining down, the concussion pounding his chest. Shrapnel whines overhead. One round lands close to the FW-190, flipping the tail section sideways. When the barrage lifts, the aircraft is further mangled, but the evidence remains. Evening brings orders. Carr is finally pulled rearward, jeep ride to regiment, then truck to Division CP, hot food, a cot in a heated tent. He sleeps 12 hours straight, waking only when someone shakes him on November 5th. Clean uniform, shave, real coffee. A P-51 pilot from a nearby group flies in to ferry him back to the 354th. The buildup reaches its emotional crest that afternoon at the fighter field. The entire group turns out, ground crew, pilots, even the cooks, lining the perforated steel runway as the liaison Mustang taxis in. Carr climbs down stiffly, and the cheering starts. Men slap his back, pump his hand, shout questions all at once. His squadron commander, red-eyed, pulls him into a bear hug without a word. Over the following days the story solidifies. Debriefings, reports typed up, photographs circulated. Carr receives a new Mustang, but the legend of the stolen FW-190 follows him everywhere. The climax stretches across these hours and days, the slow shift from solitary survival to recognition, from hunted man to returning hero, the ordeal finally acknowledged in full. November 5, 1944. Late afternoon. The perforated steel planking of the forward airstrip near Nancy gleams dully under a weak sun breaking through scattered clouds. The 354th Fighter Group's base hums with the usual rhythm. Ground crews swarming over P-51s, armorers wheeling .50 caliber belts, fuel bozers rumbling between revetments. But today the rhythm is broken. Almost every man on the field, pilots in leather jackets, mechanics in grease-stained coveralls, even the mess sergeants, has drifted toward the runway threshold. They stand in loose knots, cigarettes glowing, eyes fixed on the eastern sky. A single P-51 Mustang approaches low and fast, gear down, flaps extended. It is the liaison bird from the 9th Air Force, borrowed to bring Lieutenant Bruce Carr the final leg home. The pilot flares smoothly, touches down with a chirp of rubber, and taxis toward the waiting crowd. Prop wash kicks up dust and dead leaves as the Merlin winds down. The canopy slides back. Carr climbs out slowly, clean-shaven now in a fresh flight suit, but still moving like a man who has not slept deeply in days. The field erupts. Cheers roll across the strip, hats tossed in the air, whistles and shouts blending into a single roar. Men surge forward as he steps onto the wing. His squadron commander, Major Bert Smiley, reaches him first. No words, just a hard embrace that lifts Carr off his feet. Then the others. Flight mates slapping his back, ground crew pumping his hand, someone shoving a lit cigarette between his lips. The battle outcome, his personal battle, is complete. Collapse never came. Breakthrough did. Over the next hours, the story pours out in fragments, repeated and enlarged with each telling. In the operations hut first, maps spread on the table, Carr tracing his route with a grease pencil while intelligence officers scribble notes. Then in the mess tent over steaming coffee and steak. Real steak, flown in for the occasion. Pilots crowd around the long tables, hanging on every detail. The crash in the meadow, the night in the woods, the cold crawl to the FW-190, the frantic startup as rifles cracked behind him, the long flight west under fire from both sides, the final, desperate landing amid American tracers. Laughter erupts when he describes figuring out the German cockpit by feel, cursing the labels in a language he couldn't read. Silence falls when he speaks quietly of the engine coughing, the certainty it would seize miles short of the lines. Eyes widen at the moment Allied guns opened on him. By the time he reaches the crash landing and the sergeant's incredulous, "Well, I'll be damned." The tent is packed, men standing 3 deep at the flaps. The breakthrough extends beyond survival. Intelligence has already pounced on the captured FW-190. Despite the artillery damage, enough remains for study. The commandajurat, the armament records, the logbook detailing recent sorties. Technicians from right field are en route to dissect it further. Carr's observations, flak positions marked, troop concentrations noted during his low-level run, fill gaps in the latest reconnaissance mosaics. Small pieces, but valuable in a war measured in inches of ground gained. Evening settles. The group throws an impromptu party in the pilot's ready room. Captured cognac and schnapps passed around. A phonograph scratching out Glenn Miller records smuggled from England. Carr is pushed into the center, forced to retell parts of the tale again, but the energy shifts. Men grow quieter as the alcohol takes hold. They look at him differently now, not just the kid who flew too many missions, but the one who beat odds no one would bet on. Outside, the sky darkens to deep blue. Carr slips away eventually, walks alone between the revetments where the Mustangs sit like sleeping predators. Ground crewmen nod respectfully as he passes. He stops at an empty slot. His old bird, Angel's playmate, long since written off after the crash report came in. Tomorrow they'll paint a new one, same name. He runs a hand along a propeller blade, feels the familiar cool metal, breathes the scent of aviation gas and dope. The battle is over for him in this moment. The front still rages 30 miles east. Men dying in the cold mud tonight. But here, on this strip of French soil, the outcome is settled. He came back. Not as a prisoner, not as a name on a missing list, but walking, breathing, whole. Later, in his tent, he lies on the cot fully dressed, boots still on. The cheers echo in his ears, but quieter now. Exhaustion finally claims him, deep and dreamless. Outside, the field settles into night watch. Sentries pacing, engines occasionally turning over for test runs. The distant rumble of artillery a constant undertone. The breakthrough is complete. From shot-down pilot deep in enemy territory to returned warrior in 48 hours. The war goes on, but this one story has ended in victory. November 6, 1944. Dawn light filters through the canvas walls of the officer's tent at the 354th Fighter Group's base near Nancy. Bruce Carr wakes slowly, the cot creaking under him, the blanket warm for the first time in days. The air smells of coal smoke from the stove in the corner and the faint, lingering tang of aviation fuel that permeates everything here. For a long moment he lies still, staring at the ridgepole, listening to the familiar sounds. A Merlin turning over on a test stand, the clatter of mess kits, muffled voices of early rising pilots trading jokes outside. He sits up, boots hitting the cold duckboards. His body aches, bruises from the crash landing in the FW-190, muscles stiff from the long flight and the nights before. The bandage on his forehead itches. He dresses in the clean uniform laid out for him, fingers the silver bars on the collar, and steps outside into the chill morning. The immediate aftermath unfolds quietly across the field. Ground crewmen nod as he passes, some offering shy grins, others touching their caps in informal salute. A sergeant armorer calls out, "Morning, sir. Your new bird's ready when you are." Carr walks to the revetment where a fresh P-51D waits, factory-fresh olive drab replaced with the group standard bare metal, the name Angel's Playmate 2 already painted below the cockpit in careful script. The crew chief stands proudly beside it, wiping his hands on a rag. 20-minute alert if you want to test hop her, Lieutenant. Carr runs a hand along the wing leading edge, feels the cool aluminum, the rivets, the familiar shape. No radial engine, no German labels. Just the long, elegant nose of the Mustang, the Packard Merlin waiting silently. He nods to the chief. "Soon," he says. "Not today. Not yet." Breakfast in the mess tent is subdued for him. Pilots at the long tables fall quiet as he enters with his tray. Eggs, real bacon, toast thick with butter. They make room on the bench, pass the coffee pot without being asked. Conversation starts carefully. Questions about the route, the condition of the 190's engine, how the commandajurat felt under combat power. Carr answers in short sentences, voice steady but distant. The men sense it, the need for space, and the talk drifts to today's missions, weather brief, expected bomber escort to Germany. After eating, he walks alone to the operations hut. The intelligence officer hands him a folder. Preliminary report typed up from his debriefings, maps annotated with his observations. A teletype from 9 Fighter Command congratulates the group on the unique intelligence coup of the captured FW-190. There is talk of a citation, maybe a silver star. Carr reads it without comment, signs where required, hands it back. Outside again, the field comes fully alive. Flights taxi out for the morning's first missions, propellers flashing in the climbing sun. Carr watches from the edge of the runway as his squadron mates take off in pairs, wheels up, forming up overhead before turning east. The roar of 12 Merlins fades into the distance. He feels the pull, the instinct to run for his own plane, strap in, lead his flight. But the flight surgeon has grounded him for 48 hours observation. Standard after a shoot-down and evasion. Mid-morning brings visitors. A war correspondent arrives in a jeep, notebook in hand, photographer trailing. They ask him to stand beside the new Mustang for pictures. Carr complies, forcing a half-smile as the bulb flashes. The reporter presses for details, colorful phrases. Carr gives him the facts, nothing more. "Just wanted to get home," he says finally. The man scribbles it down, satisfied. By noon, the wrecked FW-190, what remains of it, has been loaded onto a lowboy trailer and hauled rearward under guard, headed for technical intelligence dissection at a depot in England. Carr watches the truck disappear down the muddy road, the crumpled tail with its faded swastika the last thing visible. Afternoon is quiet. He sits on an ammo crate outside the tent, cleaning his .45 absent-mindedly, oil rag moving in slow circles. Pilots returning from the morning mission land one by one, taxiing in with victory rolls for confirmed kills. They debrief, laughing, exhausted, alive. A few stop to talk, share cigarettes. No one mentions the empty slot where his old plane would have been. Dusk settles early, the sky bruising purple over the distant hills. The field lights come on, dim blue bulbs along the runway, floodlights on the alert shack. Carr eats supper alone at the end of a table, then walks the perimeter track one last time. Frost begins to form on the grass. Somewhere east, artillery rumbles like far-off thunder. He stops at his new Mustang again. The ground crew has gone to evening chow. In the silence, he climbs onto the wing, lowers himself into the cockpit. The seat fits perfectly. Instruments familiar, throttle quadrant exactly where it should be. He sits there a long while, hands resting lightly on the stick, staring at the dark horizon where the war waits. No speeches, no crowds now. Just the quiet aftermath on the ground, the return to routine, the slow reclaiming of normalcy after the impossible. He is back among his own, alive, whole. The story will follow him, but tonight it fades into the background hum of the airfield at rest. November 7th, 1944. Early evening. The sun dips low over the French countryside, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple as it sinks behind the distant Vosges hills. The 354th Fighter Group's airfield falls into its nightly hush. Engines have gone silent for the day. The last mission debriefs are wrapping up in the operations hut. Ground crews finish wiping down cowlings and topping off oil, their voices low as they head toward the mess tent for supper. Frost already glints on the grass between the revetments. Bruce Carr walks slowly along the perimeter track, hands in the pockets of his leather atu jacket, collar turned up against the chill. He has flown no missions today, the flight surgeon's grounding still holds, but he spent the afternoon in the cockpit of Angel's Playmate 2 anyway, running through checklists, feeling the familiar weight of the stick, the reassuring growl of the Merlin on a ground run. Tomorrow he returns to the schedule. He stops at the end of the runway, where the perforated steel gives way to bare earth. From here he can see the whole field. Rows of Mustangs parked nose to tail, canvas covers pulled over some, ground crewmen coiling hoses, a jeep's headlights flickering as it ferries pilots back from dispersal. The air smells of cooling metal, aviation gas, and wood smoke from the stoves in the tents. The human cost settles over him quietly now, in this moment of calm. He thinks of the men who did not come back from the sweep on November 2nd, those who tangled with the flak or the late-rising 190s while he nursed his smoking Mustang toward the ground. Names and faces. Young pilots who shared cigarettes in the ready room, swapped stories about girls back home, borrowed each other's lucky charms before missions. Some bought it that day, others in the weeks before. The squadron board still carries a few missing tags that will never change to returned. He thinks of the German ground crew who fueled and serviced the FW-190 he stole. Ordinary men, probably, doing their jobs in the cold dawn, unaware their aircraft would vanish under their noses. Some may have faced questions, punishment for the lapse. He thinks of the sentries who fired at him as he taxied out, the pilots who scrambled too late to catch him. Men on the other side with their own fears, their own letters home unwritten. And the GIs in the meadow, infantry of the 90th Division, who shot at him first, then dragged him to cover when the German artillery answered. One of them took shrapnel that day, Carr learned later. A kid from Pennsylvania, leg torn up, evacuated rearward. Collateral cost of his desperate landing. No grand reckoning, just the quiet arithmetic of war. Lives risked and spent so one pilot could thread an impossible needle and come home. Carr pulls a cigarette from his pack, cups his hands against the breeze to light it. The match flares briefly, illuminating his face. Still young, but eyes older now. He exhales smoke into the darkening sky, watches it drift and disappear. Behind him, the field lights come on one by one. Dim blue runway markers, a floodlight over the alert shack. Somewhere a radio plays softly, a big band tune carrying faintly on the wind. Laughter rises from the mess tent as the evening meal gets underway. Normal sounds, life going on. He finishes the cigarette, grinds it under his boot. No speeches to give, no lessons to draw. Just the knowledge that he is here, breathing, while others are not. Tomorrow he will fly again. Escort bombers deeper into Germany, hunt fighters, strafe columns. The war will demand more. It always does. Carr turns and walks back toward the tents, boots crunching on frost-stiffened gravel. The Mustangs sit in silent rows, silver shapes in the gathering dark. Overhead, the first stars appear, cold and distant. The airfield settles into night. Somewhere far east, artillery rumbles like a restless sea. But here, for this one man, the ordeal ends not with fanfare, but with the simple, quiet fact of survival. He disappears into the glow of the tent flaps, the door canvas falling shut behind him.